before I introduce you to Ben, the main event. I'm Jack Burns, Kirsty McLaughlin is over there in the corner with, putting your hands up. The club is all about our frustration really, I suppose, with lots of ideas going to waste. So over the years we've both worked as agents, we saw lots of good ideas that weren't developed enough to sell, so they just kind of went, oh, sorry, they fell in a heap. This club is about bridging that gap between no and getting a deal, really. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And people, everyone here, there was some people I haven't met before who are here tonight, but I know that everyone here is properly writing. There's not that wannabe nonsense.
I love wannabes.
People are properly writing, and some people are on their fifth book, some people on their first book.
Is anyone published or agented, or where are you at with stuff? Self-published, okay, right.
I'm getting short stories published by HarperCollins next month.
Congratulations.
There's a whole bunch of people who've done stuff on.
Good.
I've had 3 books and I'm delivering a book in January. Don't tell anyone I've written much for you. What can I say? Ben's come along tonight. He knows everything there is to know about young adult fiction and children's books, and has made a point of specialising, focusing his life on such things.
And I'm one of very few men who have. It's a very female-dominated industry, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to do it, because I quite like being a male voice in that world. It's very
USP.
that's one of them.
One of them.
I think,
okay,
probably.
I'm sure we'll find out what the others are. Essentially, the format of the evenings, we'll do about 20 minutes of Ben talking, and we'll try and get through that because he's got some clear information and advice that he wants to impart, so we'll try and get through that. Then we'll have a few questions, then we'll have a break, and then more questions, okay? And in the break, please let him go, Pete. Don't you hammer around too much. We have had cuddles in this corner.
I've got a good bladder. I wouldn't say that, no.
So
I haven't a good bladder.
Ben Ellis, welcome.
Thank you very much, no problem at all. Hello everyone, thanks for coming along and being so many of you, which is great. So close to me. I'm going to be quite sort of generic and flit about because that's the way my brain works a bit. I will hopefully have some good information for you guys. If you want anything clarified as we go through, do interrupt me, just stick your hand up or whatever, and I'll just enlarge on that. But on the whole, it's probably best to keep the questions to the end. As Jack was saying, there is a big gap. There's a gap between what these ideas are making them happen, and it's never been bigger, I would say, than it is now. Large part of that comes down to economics. Many of you probably know the book industry is not doing as well as it might. What I feel, a lot of other editors and agents will feel, is that what this is meaning is that there's less money and less time to edit books editorially in-house. That means it's up to you guys to do it alone, which is really hard. And up to certain agents, and I think we can include ourselves with that, who will work with writers to get their books ready. So in a funny kind of way, it's almost as if the editorial process is jumping further up the chain, closer to you guys and before, whereas stuff that previously might have been done post-contract, it's just not happening right now. And that's tough on you guys, really, really, really tough. But that's, I suppose, where I think talking about USPs, one of my USPs, but certainly a selling point side of things, I'm very hands-on. And in terms of my process, I will take something I think has got something that I like, and it doesn't mean that if I don't take it, it doesn't necessarily recommend it. And it does come down to subjective taste, it comes down to gaps on list, it comes down to not wanting to represent 2 writers who are aiming at the same little tiny piece of market. I will work with them a lot. I am aware everyone has to have a day job for much of their writing life, at such time as they're able to support themselves. So that means a lot of work at evenings and weekends. It's one of the reasons why I like to work freelance. It's one of the reasons why I like to work on my own. I work from home most of the time when I'm not meeting people in London. Most of my work is done brainstorming either face-to-face, down the phone, and Skype, with a glass of wine, probably too many cigarettes in my hand. To give a photograph, I was going to give some examples. One of my adorable clients, Lisa Glass, who came to me with a book on a slush pile, lovely voice, amazing sense of place. But the narrative wasn't there, the plot wasn't there, but her voice and her writing style got me interested. We worked bloody hard on that book, and I did a short submission. All of the feedback confirmed what I suspected, which is that it just wasn't quite working, but everyone loved her voice. Lisa and I spent about 3 hours on the phone for the first brainstorm to look at what we might do next, and then we spent another several hours, and then we emailed to and fro. She came up with a plot for another book in her world. Did a 3-book deal this summer, I'm pleased to say, and that's sort of how I like to work. Obviously, if the first book hits, it's fantastic, but as I'm sure many of you know, that often just isn't the case. So my take as an agent is I'm investing, or I'm wanting to get involved with you guys as writers, not just as a book. So that's a little bit about how I work, I suppose. I'm not going to go through who I am because it's long as hell, but I've done almost every job in publishing you can imagine, short of rights, I think, probably. No, yes, actually, but only because I'm a one-man band, so I do my own post-room. I have done post-room, I have done production, I have done design and layouts, I have been sales director, marketing director, once briefly a sales, marketing and publicity director globally, which was a bit of fun. I've been a book buyer, I've written books, I've even ghostwritten non-fiction. I am still on the side, I'm a travel writer because agency doesn't pay very well, I don't get very nice holidays. So I write for some magazines and newspapers, so I do get nice holidays. I'm a bit of a bird and wildlife nut, and normally a little bit less scruffy, but frankly not much. Anyway, so done lots of stuff. I want to skip through a few things, so I don't want to get too bogged down. I know you guys are pretty savvy on the process on agents and how we work. I do want to give you a few tips, which you probably know, and they're probably real no-brainers, but on approaching an agent, where to be. Read around your subject. The first thing I would say to anyone who wants to write for children, young and adult, is don't try and write for kids of all ages. It's impossible, very, very tough to sell someone in lots of different age groups at the same time. Once you've built some reputation, then by all means, yes, of course you can, and you can write for different age groups, but it's going to be tough. And I think the important thing that you guys have is that you focus on where your writing suits best. So read around. I often get submissions where I go, I love the story, I love the character, I love this voice, but this lad or this girl, I feel ought to be on the stage of the first relationship and you've made them 10. Well, why don't you actually move to younger, or vice versa? So think around, don't be set on your age group initially. Read around, see where you think your story, your voice, your character, and what amuses you most, because that's when you're going to be most successful. So one thing, I would say again, and I don't know if every agent would agree on this, probably they would, when you're approaching an agent, focus on your best book. Don't send us 10, don't give me a million ideas, because I don't know where to start, I don't know where your passion is. Find a project and go with it with all your heart. Show me your passion, show me your commitment to that. And then we can talk about your other ideas. So by all means have them. And on this example, I used the lovely Claire McFord, who's another client of mine. Now, she sent me a book again on the slush pile, which I adored. Again, it was voice, and it's often voice and living characters that will draw me in, and I will talk a bit about what I look out for and some things to look at in that towards the end. Claire came to me, and I love this book, but I could see some problems in how I might get it published. The characters aged from 14 to 21, which made it a little bit broadly focused, if you like. It was very successful as a novel, as an idea. She'd written 7 books. So I said to her, if nothing else, she said, oh, well, I've written 7 books so far. And she said, by the time we met, she was in an 8th. You know, and she came all the way down from Edinburgh to see me. Her first book was published by Templar this March, and has been shortlisted for the Children's Scottish Book Trust, the YA Book Award, and shortlisted 3, and is longlisted for the UK Literary Agency. She's amazing. And she'd been writing on her own at home when she got back from teaching at school, you know, for that long. It's an example, you know, write as much as you can, but stay in one age group, so that's a piece of advice for you. Good practice when you're pitching to agents, and just generally for selling your own book, you need to know what your book is. We need to know what your book is. Ultimately, if I take someone on, we're going to be a team. We need to know how to sell that book. Now, brilliant practice for you guys is to come up with one or even a series of 1 or 2 line sales taglines. Okay, because that's what I'm going to have to do. If you can sell it to me with that, I can then sell it to the editor with that. The editor will then probably sell it to sales in their acquisitions meeting to that. And then eventually those sales reps will go into bookshops and they might use the same words you have. So know your book, know what you're trying to do, and know how to sell it. By the same token, when you're reading around other books, read the back of book blurbs and come up with your own ones. Come to me with a back of book blurb, something like that. Don't give me a one-page synopsis that gives me every single piece of action in the book, because if you're going to try reading something like that, you cannot get your head around it. You sit there going, hang on, who's that one? And you don't need to know about every character. So think back of book blurb, and that's one of the things that's very, very useful in selling what I would say.